Story time, Tech Edition. For 16 years, Sling has been silently powering billions of web pages, all without turning into a spaghetti monster or catching on fire. How did we get here? And who better to talk us through this than one of Sling's original architects, Bertrand, who is no stranger to you. He's been presenting here since 2013, which is incredible. So please welcome on stage, Bertrand.
Thank you, Sharanya. Good morning, Berlin. You're all energized. Get some coffee for one more talk. You still have a few to go during this day. So my name is Bertrand Delacretaz. I come from the French-speaking part of Switzerland, where we invented the raclette, I think. I'm a principal scientist at Adobe Basel. And yeah, as Sharanya said, I was here at the very beginning of Sling. I'm still here for some time, so it says farewell tour. I'm actually reaching the age where you can retire, so I'm going to do that next year. Still have some projects, but more related to music, some different stuff, but I'll still be doing tech, but in a slightly different context. Or maybe I'll do, like the rock bands, do the farewell tour for 25 years. We'll see. This is about Sling. So Sling is the core of AEM. It was created to be the core of CQ5, Communique 5, when we were still Day Software. I'm going to tell this story mostly in terms of lesson learned. What did we do right, and how can you maybe benefit from these ideas for other projects? That's my angle. On top of the hopefully entertaining historical aspects. I tend to remember good things. If I remember something, it's usually because it was good. So I might be skipping on some of the problems. But I will also talk about the challenges, because we did have some challenges. But as Sharanya was saying, Sling has been powering CQ5 forever. And that means some pages delivered, quite a number of pages actually. This is from adaptTo, 2001 by Carsten. He was here before. He's probably still around somewhere. And this was explaining the context for Sling at the time, and it has not really changed. Before AEM was an Adobe product, the product was called CQ Communique, and the company was called Day Software in Basel, small company with 35 people that I joined in 2007, on about the same day as Carsten, actually. And the goal was to create a delivery framework, so a framework to deliver content, based on what Day Software had been doing for already almost 15 years, I think, at the time. And following REST principles, Roy Fielding was already working with us at the time, so we need to be we're trying to be compliant to the REST ideas, based on JCR, the Java Content Repository, customizable, and so on. And this was the vision for Sling, and I think we got there pretty nicely. And you could say that Sling is the reason why we are here, because this conference was initially created, as the Apache Sling and Friends Tech Meetup. So it's really, it's been playing an important role in our lives, in our professional life, for some time. And it's going to start by timeline. There's a kazoo on this slide. Yesterday night we had the Sling community meetup, and we were discussing this talk over beers, I should say, reasonably. And one of the things that I'm doing in view of retiring is I started designing and building kazoo, and they said you should play some. So why not? And so we'll do a little game which will help keep you awake. I'll play a bit of a song, and you can shout when you recognize the song. Let my people go when Moses turned in Egypt's land. This is a timeline. Back to more serious stuff. I mean, this kazoo is very serious in a different way. So Day Software started in 1993. It was one of the very first companies doing web in Switzerland. I think they even started with CD-ROMs before the web existed. I mean, before the web was popularized, I would say. 2007, they decided to donate the code to the Apache Software Foundation. And that's when I had joined shortly before. And that's when Sling started in incubation at Apache for maybe a year, I forgot. An important event is µSling. We'll discuss that later. Then in 2008, the first instance of CQ5 was used by the city of Zurich for a commercial project. I was actually training them because I had done training before. So Jean-Michel, our boss, says, Bertrand, you train those folks. So I was close to that project, and it was really the beginning of the CQ5 history. So before CQ5, there was some people were mentioning CQ3.5, 2.2 something. I'm not as old as that in the software. I started with CQ5, really. Then we won a JAX Innovation Award in 2008, if I remember correctly. And then in 2010, Adobe.com was running on our stuff since a few years already, and Adobe said, maybe we can also buy the company instead of just buying the product. So we got acquired by Adobe. And it's been an interesting adventure, a fantastic adventure, I would say. As I often say that this software was a typical Swiss engineering company. You know, engineering was really good, sales were not that fantastic. So when we got acquired by Adobe, we got really good sales teams, and it exploded, really. The usage and customers, number of customers of CQ exploded. I think there were a few intermediate names that I forgot, and now it's called AEM, Experience Manager, since that time. And then there's still 15 years between that and today, so things have happened. We had very few serious bugs in the core of Sling. We've been very careful how we designed it, testing. I'll speak about this as well. And this has worked pretty well. I think it's been stable for quite some time. And then we had to move to the cloud, which was challenging because it was not designed for that at all. It was really designed for on-premise things. So it was a big effort to bring it to the cloud as it's today, with immutability and that. And nowadays, I think Sling is still going strong. Even if we don't have big plans for new things in Sling, we're still totally able to maintain it, evolve it, deprecate things which are not needed anymore. It has not turned into a spaghetti monster. And that's really nice. And so maybe there's some lessons to learn from that. How big is it? It has a lot of modules. We had Robert Muntean, who is not here, but he's the one who did the job of convincing the SF's infrastructure team that the project with more than 300 repositories is okay. And the best way to convince them was to write scripts that helped manage it. So Sling has more than 300 modules. Many of them are very small. Some of them are not used much or not used at all, but they're still around. We try to deprecate them, you know, when we realize they're not used anymore, but there's more than 300 modules. So it's extremely modular. More than 1 million lines of Java code. They did a quick analysis coming to that number here. And about 35% of that is test code. So that's also part of the quality. In terms of size, customers, number of pages served, this is a list from trendsbuiltwith.com. I cannot give you, confidential numbers from Adobe, but this gives you an idea of and you probably know that already, this audience. It's really big companies who are using AEM, so based on Sling, for big websites. And if you would try to count the number of pages, web pages that have been served by some parts of the core code of Sling, that's billions. So it makes me feel good to have contributed something like that and say, oh yeah, this. In Switzerland, I think in the train stations, the timetable displays are backed by AEM somewhere, so I can tell my friends, I worked on something that helps make this work. So it's gratifying, and it's impressive to realize how many. It shows that it was worth getting it right if you want to serve that many pages. Now let's speak about µSling, which I think is an important aspect of that. And there's a kazoo on this title page, so I need to play a small tune that you need to recognize. And for this one, I need a beat. Thank you. You probably know this song, right? It has to do with Switzerland, Smoke on the Water. The Made in Japan version, where the second phrase is a bit different. µSling. It's something that I think it was an important step. So when that day software code was donated to Apache, it had existed for more than 10 years, almost 15, and I was brand new. I just started with day software with JCR, I had no clue about that, and I was not understanding any of it. The naming was very strange. It worked very well, but coming from outside, looking at it, what's this? So my way of trying to fix this was to create what I called µSling, so a super reduced version of the thing, which pretty much did the same thing on a smaller scale, and to try to get the names right. The class names, the interface names. So I wrote this, and then we discussed it with the other team, including Felix Mechberger, who had been with Day Software for a long time. And then we agreed on the good names. But my point here is that it was so much easier to do that based on code that's working, even if it's very simple and minimal, than to discuss for ages. It's super hard to agree on names and interfaces and stuff by discussing. So my point here is that code speaks louder than words. If you have a hard time agreeing on interfaces, on concepts, on architectures, write some code. It will help you a lot, I think. And this was a demonstration. This is a list of the initial Sling committers. Out of them, so Carsten is obviously still around. Carl Pauls is also still around. Ian Boston a little bit. Felix Mechberger a tiny bit. So, most of them have changed. It's normal after 15 years. If you know these people, you probably know that we are very different. And we have often very different opinions. And we very rarely agree from the get-go, Initially, we were not fighting, but arguing and discussing. And this also, I think, helped get good quality. Because if you are with people who have challenging opinions, are opinionated, it helps. If you agree, then it probably means it's a good thing. And I think that has helped also get a good structure, a good architecture for the core of Sling, which is quite powerful. This diagram was created by our colleague Lars Trilov around 2009 probably, and it shows how does Sling work, and you can really explain that in 2 minutes over coffee to a colleague. And then you understand the Sling concept. There's a request coming in, the address is a resource. The resource has a resource type. Use a resource type to select a script or a servlet using a best match. And it's all convention over configuration. When you want to create a new servlet, you just have to put it in a system and Sling will find it. And I think that was a very important part of the power of Sling. What's explained by this diagram. Sling has an unusual tech stack. You probably know that by now. The good thing is that out of fashion is a very stable state. It's been a long time since the things that we are using in Sling are out of fashion, but they are still out of fashion in the same way. It's not getting worse, not really. So this, in a way, this has helped the stability of the framework. And also, I think JCR and OSGI are fantastic for team decoupling. You can really collaborate on a complex system without having to agree on much. When you create an OSGI bundle, you just expose maybe 1 or 2 small interfaces. The rest is your stuff. So, it helps the coordination when you have a big team, and we have a pretty big team working on AEM. So I think this has been super helpful to have OSGI and JCR, which promote this decoupling, which can also lead sometimes to inconsistencies. Because if you have less coupling, people are more free to do whatever they want. So this has been a challenge as well, but I think it has really helped us move quickly and to get a good product with pretty large team or a set of teams, I would say. Another thing that I think we got hard and that we got right, and that has meant a lot of work in Sling, is getting the right names. If something has a good name in tech, it's so much easier to understand what it does. So very often we spend lots of effort and many iterations until the name for that thing is good. And that was a big part of that µSling effort that I was mentioning before. So if you look at the names of the interfaces in Sling, most of them are really, they speak to you. The free marker script engine, obvious what it does. The Sling script resolver. The resource is a bit, a resource can be many things. So you have to, when you say resource, you have to say exactly what it means. The µSling main servlet and so on. So that's another lesson that I've learned from the Sling project. Is really worth spending time getting good names for the key parts of your system, for the core APIs and all that stuff. And it's not, this is my latest example from July this year, when I was adding a small thing in the servlets resolver, and I named that initially resource predicate. And Conrad, who's probably convinced us, who was here yesterday, still around, hey, you're Conrad, says, yeah, this is good, but the name is not precise enough for me. Can we work on the name? And then we spent a few iterations trying a new name until we ended up with ignored servlet resource predicate, which is very obvious. So that's just one example. You can do that in a ticket. In this case, it's in a pull request. And don't give up getting good names. If I can make a recommendation, it's really worth over time. It's really worth the effort. So it's a principle. It's a style that we've had in Sling for a long time, and that is not going away, even though the project is less active nowadays than it used to be. The next topic is paranoid testing, which I think also has played a very important role. And there's a kazoo on this slide. So also make you guess a little tune. Who knows this one? Yes, thank you. Swiss national anthem. I told you that. Radu started it with raclette, so I had to, follow up. So what do I consider to be paranoid testing? If you look at the Sling test code, there's really different angles for testing. Obviously, there's unit tests. That's something that you need to have. And I have to say, when I was writing tests in the first few years of Sling, when I was much more active in the code base, some of my tests were designed to make sure nobody would break my stuff. Because it's an open source project, so it's hard to keep complete control on what's happening, and the tests are a really good way of doing that. So sometimes I would over-test my stuff, have like 2 different tests which test the same thing, and then by looking at the code changes on the tests, okay, those didn't, maybe, I'm away for a month, I come back, and I say, okay, the tests have not changed. So if they still pass, and if they're good, I know that my code is still doing the same thing. So that's an interesting, angle in a very open source project. If you're in a corporate setup with 2-3 people working on the stuff, it might be easier to keep the overview. But in such an open project, it's harder. So of course, tests are meant to avoid regressions. That's a very standard way of considering them. I've been also using tests to explain things. A test is the best detailed documentation on a feature. If you can write a readable test, you know that if the test pass, this code is correct, and you can write it in a way that it explains what's going on. Instead of just doing a stupid test, you make it very readable, you add some commands, and then you can, if you look at the Sling documentation, there are many references to tests. Say, for the details of this, look at this test, and there's a link to the test, and you can get it. So I think that's also a very important purpose of the tests, to explain things. Of course, you will also write tests to expose bugs. So when you get a bug, first write a test that demonstrates it, if the reporter didn't provide that. Tests are also super useful to validate integration. So we have a pretty solid integration test suite in Sling, which is a bit... the way it was created was very simple, because that's what we had back in the days. Nowadays, we'll probably do it better. And we've been integrating the tests more in their own modules, the integration test, instead of having a separate integration test module. But having a separate integration test module is interesting because it gives a different angle, different way of testing. And if the critical code is tested from 3 different angles by three different tests, it doesn't matter. Once tests are written, and if they're good, they're not expensive to maintain, and they will help catch problems. It happened to me quite often that I was writing tests and I was thinking, okay, I'm being too paranoid. This test doesn't test really anything. And then the week after it broke. So yeah, it was a good idea to write that test. Tests have helped me sleep well, because when the tests pass, you know that your stuff is good, if the tests are good. And again, tests can also be good to understand code. For me, writing a test is a really good way to understand an API that I don't know well, discover it by writing tests. And you can keep them around if they're not too noisy or if you don't think they represent technical depth. So from 2007 to today, there's about 50 modules in Sling which are dedicated to testing, including testing tools, some of them a bit funky, but that's what we had in the times. Another point that's been very important, and we see this at this conference, is a strong community. I need some water. So this conference is the best demonstration of that there's a pretty strong community around Sling. This is from the 10th anniversary of Sling in 2009 at adaptTo. There's a video, I have a link at the end of the presentation, you can see it on video, and we're all singing happy birthday in our own language. So it's a bit chaotic, but it's fun. And if I look at all of the people in this picture, if I meet them, I'm super happy to meet them, and we drink something or eat something and have stories to tell. I think we are friends, even if we don't see each other outside of the Sling community, we are friends in this community. And that has helped a lot the success of the project. And I think also having a business purpose has helped. If you do something just as a hobby, and then if it becomes hard, you just leave. You say, okay, well, this getting boring, I'm out, I'm away. If it's your business, you can't leave just like that. You have to fix the problem, and even if it's a community problem, you have to fix it. And I think this has also helped us stay, strongly together, because we had a business purpose, and it was also fun and technically interesting. So a very nice community. I'm super thankful for these people for the last 18 years almost. It's been a good, really nice experience. Another concept that's important that we've been applying in many places in Sling is doing stuff that's good enough. Don't overdo it. I have another talk on simplicity, and really software is finished. The quote is not from me, it's from Saint-Exupéry. Software is finished not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing more to remove. Any piece of software, if you remove anything, it should break. It means it's optimal. And I think it's probably not true for all 350 modules of Sling. But in the core modules, we've been very careful to keep things simple, understandable. The website is an example. It's probably not the most fantastic website on the planet, but it does its purpose, and it has changed very little. Since on the left, you have the 2009 version. On the right, you have the 2025. Okay, we have a new SF logo, updated the Sling logo as well, but it hasn't changed much. And that because it's good enough. It's not super fancy, but the content is useful. It could be even better, of course, but it's pretty good. And don't overdo it. I think has been a very important concept that we've applied. And this is it already. And there's a kazoo on this page. So, oh yeah, I know what it is. So I'll also need a beat for this one. you know the final countdown, right? So it's the final countdown to this talk, the Coda. So I think Sling has been a very successful project. It's not super popular. Doesn't have a huge community, but it's been doing its job really nicely. And that's thanks to the people, basically. As I go forward in age and towards retirement, for me it's becoming more and more important who I work for, who I work with, sorry. Who I work for is also important. But the key thing is who I work with. And I think for me it's more important than exactly what I do. You know, if you're with a nice bunch of people, you can do many jobs and it will be fun and entertaining. So, and Sling has been really good in that respect. Very nice people with the right attitude, the right skills. I've learned so much with these folks, and the right drive to do something that works and that we can use in business. Many thanks to the ESF, the Apache Software Foundation, for providing support, space support, and governance. It's been, you know, the ESF is not super trendy, super fancy, whatever, but it's super solid. The governance is great, and it often shows when you have new things, like now there's the European legislations, for example, change a bit what's happening in open source, and Apache is, you know, adapting to that and supporting its projects in that. So it's been super useful to be in this organization. Many thanks to Stefan, Carsten, and Konrad, who made concrete contributions to this talk. And thanks for you for being here. So this QR code it's a page on my blog, personal blog, where you have more links to this and the video of the 10 years. And if I have more information, I will add it. I'll be here until about 1:30 this afternoon. So if you want to talk to me, do that before that. And yeah, thanks and thank you.